Controversial online influencer and self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate scored a major legal victory in his international criminal case. A Romanian court has lifted his house arrest. He's still facing some serious allegations, but won't be confined to his home as the investigation continues. This as a British MP files legal paperwork against him. We're discussing the latest details with criminal defense attorney Mauricio Padilla. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I think it would be fair to say that Andrew Tate is one of the most polarizing figures on the internet today. Yeah, the 38-year-old has a huge following on X, formerly known as Twitter, where he often has very, very polarizing posts about things like women's rights. He's a British American, having grown up in the United States until his parents divorced. He moved back to London with his mom, according to the BBC. He was a four-time kickboxing world champion before really finding his stride on social media, pushing an ultra-masculine lifestyle. In a YouTube video, Tate said that he was, quote, absolutely a misogynist. Quote, I'm a realist, and when you're a realist, you're sexist. There's no way you can be rooted in reality and not be sexist. Tate often posts about his lavish lifestyle, often highlighting his dozens of luxury cars, private jets, yachts, but he has been banned from several social media sites like TikTok and Facebook for, quote, hateful ideology. He was at one point banned on Twitter too, but his account was reinstated. And right now, he is wrapped up in a legal drama alongside his brother Tristan that has been playing out in Romanian court. We have been covering this quite thoroughly here on Sidebar since it began, and it all has to do with the Tate's online sex work business, or alleged sex work business. You see, on his website, which was taken down in February of 2022, Tate reportedly wrote, "My job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, test if she's quality, get her to fall in love with me to where she'd do anything I say, and then get her on webcam so we could become rich together." Now, Tate was first arrested in Romania outside of Bucharest in December of 2022. He had been living there for a while at the time. And they were charged with human trafficking, rape, and creating a criminal enterprise targeting women for sexual exploitation. They were ordered not to leave Romania while the trial was pending, but in July of 2024, a Romanian court ruled that they could leave the country but had to stay within the European Union. That decision was appealed and overturned less than 2 weeks later. That's according to the BBC. In December, a Bucharest Court of Appeals kicked this first case back to prosecutors, deciding not to put Tate on trial because of, quote, flaws in the indictment, as reported by Reuters. A second investigation was launched in August of 2024, and that is when Tate was put on house arrest. He, Tristan, and others are accused of trafficking minors, sexual intercourse with a minor, and money laundering. So Andrew and Tristan Tate, they also face accusations of rape and human trafficking in the United Kingdom as well. They're expected to be extradited back to the UK once this case in Romania is settled up. But they have denied all wrongdoing in all of the cases. Let me be very, very clear about that. So we're going to jump back into this in a minute, but before we do, I have something I have to tell you guys about. So we have this new sponsor. It's a brand that I personally have been using on my own for years. I love them. Brickle. It's a men's grooming line. Moisturizers, anti-aging products, eye creams. I started using those. I personally see a difference in the fine lines around my face. And of course, hair products. Yeah, I see all of your comments on there. Someone once said, my hair is polarizing. Take that in for a minute, whatever that means. Anyway, Brickle has all of these products, and you can try it all out too for free. Yes, free right now, because they have this free 16-piece sample kit. Includes face washes, anti-aging creams, hair care, moisturizers. All you're paying for is the shipping. There's no subscriptions. There's no strings attached. It's just a one-time introduction to the brand to see if you like it. So all you guys out there, or ladies with men in your life right now, you can head over to bricklemensproducts.com/sidebar or scan the QR code on screen and claim your free kit today. To talk about the latest updates in this case, and there's something very interesting going on, I want to bring in criminal defense attorney, friend of the show, Mauricio Padilla. Mauricio, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this. So this case has been going on for years now. I don't know if you've been following it, but what are your initial impressions about the twists and turns of this?
Well, listen, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in people's expression, freedom of expression. The issue is that when you're expressing ideologies like Tate is, people are eventually gonna fight back. You're gonna get a backlash. A lot of the things that he's admitted to are legal. You're allowed to assist women in webcam business. You're allowed to meet them, put them on camera. The problem is that the moment that one of these women now becomes unhappy, now she's simply going to tell somebody, "Oh, he raped me. Oh, I wasn't 18 at the time." And I think that the recent court rulings are shining a light on how bad the evidence was against him. But look how long it's taken for us to realize that. We saw him get pulled out of his house on TV. We saw him get incarcerated. We've seen the nightmare that he's gone through, only to now have the courts in the country where he's at admit that the evidence against him was flawed. And that just goes to speak about
Let me ask you about that. Because he basically says, his argument is, this has been a weaponized and politicized prosecution against him. And I'm not familiar with Romanian courts or the Romanian court system. I'm going to be very clear about that. We've had experts on before who have talked to us about it. But, he's basically saying this is corrupt. And I don't know exactly what the evidence is against him. But the logical step is, was there an abandonment of that case, the reinstitution of these other charges, because prosecutors really believe they have strong evidence against the Tates, or is this something else? Because again, you'd have to be wondering, when you say there's a fault in the case, is it the evidence is bad, or there's something procedurally wrong? I don't know if we have a clear answer to that. But again, they have been very adamant saying that all of this has been politicized against them and this is a corrupt prosecution. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that now that we're seeing the court's ruling, and in research to actually speak today, I did a little bit of research, and there's issues with the actual evidence. So my whole point is, look at how long it's taken for the lack of evidence to come back in his favor. I mean, they've pretty much attempted to destroy him, taken his property, taken his freedom, and now a year and a half, I don't know how long it's been taking, is the first time that the courts are recognizing that the evidence against him is flawed. That's, go ahead.
And talk about a win. I wanted to talk to you about what happened this week. So Romanian officials, they lifted the house arrest ruling that was put upon the Tates, and instead they put Tate under judicial control, which means he can travel around Romania while adhering to the required legal conditions. According to Reuters, those conditions include checking in with police at regular intervals, not contacting any other suspects or witnesses in the case, though it appears he still, spends time with his brother, who's an alleged co-conspirator in this. They've been photographed together multiple times. Talk to me about what that means for a criminal defendant to have something like this, this to be removed, this condition.
Well, I mean, I think it speaks to the quality of evidence that they have. If they had evidence, that was substantial, evidence that was, irrefutable, I don't believe that the courts would be allowing that type of freedom, because at the end of the day, just like in the United States, the courts are responsible for the safety of their citizens. And if they really believed that him and his brother were a safety concern to the citizens of their country, I don't believe that they would be lifting these restrictions. And I don't believe that the courts would be ruling in the manner that they are. I also understand that now the UK has filed charges against them. And eventually he has to go and deal with that. And that those charges are stemming from allegations going back from 2012 to 2015. I mean, I'm a criminal defense attorney, but I always, feel very strangely about allegations of any type that surface a decade later. And I think that just goes to show maybe that what he's saying about it being political may have, at least a grain of truth to it.
Well, what would you say to the argument that the reason we see in sexual assault cases or alleged sexual assault cases or sex trafficking cases, that the reason we don't see this for years is because it's very difficult for the victims to come forward immediately, particularly if you have individuals, defendants, who are very high profile, very wealthy. There is a concern that they could be targeted. They're in fear for their lives, their safety. And sometimes sexual assault victims, they don't recognize that they were assaulted until years later. They don't appreciate what it was. It can be a very complicated series of facts. So what would you say to that generalized argument? Again, not specifically what's happening here with the Tates, but just generally speaking.
I think the key thing that you said is wealthy. If you look, the common denominator majority of times is people are like, oh yeah, I remember 12 years ago, so-and-so, sexually assaulted me. So-and-so's rich. So-and-so is a deep pocket. it's usually attacking famous, powerful, wealthy people. And I understand the argument that, a lot of times it takes a while for people to be brave enough to come forward. But if you're a victim, I think that you need to come forward, quicker than waiting 10, 12, 14 years later, because that's something that a jury can take into consideration. And as a criminal defense attorney in any country, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to ask, why did it take you so long to come forward?
That's a very, very fair question. It's a very fair question, and it's something that's raised by defense attorneys all the time, particularly when these victims or alleged victims take the stand. Absolutely. I did want to ask you about this, the seizure that happened back in August when the new allegations of sex with a minor and trafficking minors came out. So according to DCOT, this is Romania's agency that fights organized crime, the Tate brothers and their alleged co-conspirators, they were grooming vulnerable people and then housing them in different places and forcing them to make pornographic content to post online. That's the allegations. And prosecutors say that the men kept all the profits for themselves, accusing them of making nearly $3 million US dollars through sexual exploitation, according to the BBC. And the prosecution says that the brothers bought 4 luxury cars and registered them in the names of other people to hide the proceeds of their alleged illegal activities. And according to Reuters, as part of that investigation, DCOT did a 10-hour-long search of 4 properties last year, seizing cash and other items like expensive watches and laptops and hard drives and documents. They also impounded 16 luxury cars, including 2 McLarens, 4 Ferraris, a Maybach, a Maserati, a Lamborghini. This is all what apparently representatives told Reuters. So, Mauricio, I find that interesting in the sense I wasn't entirely sure why the government had seized all of these assets. But if you're saying it's a way to prove that the proceeds were essentially laundered through these different purchases, now I can understand why they were obtained. What's your reaction to that?
It seems to me that they're putting the cart before the horse. I mean, we're looking at the appeals court in their own country, questioning the evidence that the prosecution even has. However, they've already seized assets. Like, let's figure out if what they even did was illegal before you start taking their stuff. And the allegation of, grooming and, people that work in pornography, they hire people that are going to make pornography. Yeah, at some point, those people need money, and that's the same as in the United States. It doesn't make it illegal. It depends on how it's described. And in this particular case, they're describing it as grooming. I haven't seen not one bit of evidence that there was actually a minor involved, and the allegation that they're keeping all the money, that could be like a generalization. They could have been paying them in their country a fair wage. We haven't heard any of the evidence. All we've heard is generalized attacks on them. And now for the first time, we're seeing that their own country doesn't even think that they have sufficient evidence.
Yeah. And by the way, despite being in another country, Tate is facing a lot of legal trouble back in the UK, like we mentioned. So a British court ruled in December that police could seize more than £2 million from them, the Tates, because they didn't pay their taxes. And then on Tuesday, this is interesting, a Northern Ireland MP named Saoirse Eastwood launched this legal proceeding against both Andrew and Tristan Tate over social media posts. You see, last week, Tate announced on Twitter that he was launching a political party called BRUV, Britain Restoring Underlying Values. He said he's running for Prime Minister. Never mind the fact that one really can't run for prime minister. You have to be appointed by the king once your political party wins the majority of seats in the House of Commons. But anyway, according to The Guardian, it doesn't appear that Tate actually did all of the necessary paperwork to start an official political party. Says this is likely just a publicity stunt, but it is one that is certainly getting a lot of attention. I mean, Tate has more than, 10 million followers on X? And Sky News reports that the legal filings don't say which post the MP takes issue with, but says they were posted on Friday, January 10th. And just one day earlier, Eastwood had spoken before Parliament during a debate on violence against girls and women, and she said she was herself a survivor of abuse. And she had also previously posted online about the danger of seeing men such as Andrew Tate as role models when he so clearly objectifies and degrades women, according to her. And on Friday, she and Tate got into this online feud, trading very angry tweets. Eastwood posted this message: The brass neck of this guy trying to lecture on politics, doesn't pay taxes, served with high court papers, banned from Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube for hate speech and misogyny, currently detained in Romania on allegations of sex with a minor. He is the last person on earth that has any knowledge, experience, passion, or care for the people of UK and Ireland, especially women and girls, an utterly reprehensible and vile individual who needs to be called out and brought to justice. A threat to me? Real men don't threaten women, and you will not intimidate me. Tate responded, British members of parliament feel threatened by Vote Bruv and are already trying to stop me. They know I could already win. After 3 days, we're the most popular political party within the UK. We own the youth. And my message to Saoirse is simple. Nobody likes you. Nobody trusts you. Nobody even knows who you are. Soon you will be replaced and forgotten. But the Tates, Elon Musk, Trump, we are forever. The future is ours. Your irrelevance is lingering alongside my inevitable conquest. Now, Mauricio, I'm not going to ask you to get into the politics of all this, but I am going to ask you, if you're representing a very high-profile defendant, do you want that defendant becoming more high profile? Do you want them to be engaging in these online battles? I mean, it's interesting because as we talk about the strategies of very high profile criminal defendants like a Sean Combs right now, what do? Do you just let the evidence speak for itself at court? Do you just fight this in the court of law? How much do you fight in the court of public opinion? You know, Andrew Tate is a very, very well recognized individual. What would you recommend him to do?
I mean, at this point, that line's been crossed long ago. So, yeah. So at this point, he could do whatever he wants. He does have a huge following, even in the United States. I was a fan of him, of his kickboxing when he was a professional kickboxer. I have met, young teenagers in the United States that train with me that actually give him money and that are part of the Hustler University, which I don't even know if it still exists, but yeah, he does have a big following, and I think at this point that following is power for him. So this is one of the rare cases where I wouldn't be completely opposed to it. I think that he is getting attacked politically, and one could only expect that when you spew the type of things that he says. I'm not a big fan of the things that he says, but I feel like if he really should have seen this attack coming, and somebody in his position should have spent the money in the country where he was living to try and protect himself from it before the attack.
That's a good point. It's an interesting point. All right, well, listen, we'll keep an eye on what happens next in this ongoing legal saga. We know Mauricio Padilla will be there for us as well. Mauricio, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.